welcome back to another video on the Finchy Talks Football YouTube channel. Today we're going to be going through my Premier League predictions for the 25-26 season, as pretty much everybody on the app has done. I know this has been recorded as of around 3 o'clock, so pretty to the wire for the Liverpool-Bournemouth game, but I kind of want to give myself as much information as possible before making these predictions, because obviously, across the season, a lot of things can happen, and I might look back on this in a few months and think, "What were you thinking?" So, to do it, with as much information as possible, was my goal. By the way, how nice is this Gillingham top? I literally just got it today, and I thought, do you know what? We've got to stick it on for the video. I feel like this has been a really good season for football tops in general. Like, apart from the West Ham ones, I've not been too impressed with those, but on a whole, I think there's been some really good football tops released this season, and this Gills one might be one of my favourites for a while. But anyway, let's get into today's video. So starting off with the relegation places. Now, I know it's pretty boring to say this, but pretty sure it's just going to be the 3 promoted sides that are just going to go straight back down again. I don't really see them managing to do like much. I think that rock bottom for me is probably going to be Burnley. I think they've bought well enough, but I think when your whole basis of how you play is like defensive football and being structured and good at the back, I feel like you're going to win less Premier League games. When your whole structure is trying to nick a goal and being quite free flowing and free roaming as a side, I feel like you've got a bit more of a chance to nick a few more points. But I mean, most, if not all, Premier League teams are going to be able to unlock Burnley's defence. And I also don't really rate Scott Parker too much as a manager. Another manager I don't really rate too much is Daniel Farker. So I don't know if I'm doing this like this is 20th and this is 19th, but we'll probably do it like that. I don't really rate Farker as a Premier League manager. I think he's got a CV for going down. I think Leeds as well have actually just not really bought anyone. There's a bit of unsettle at the camp. They've said that Patrick Bamford is no longer going to be the striker for them, so that ruins a little bit of Premier League experience for them. And whilst I think Burnley have recruited quite well, like I said, I just don't really buy into the whole Burnley system. And even then, like, are you going to get Brozier playing week in, week out, who they're probably bringing in to score goals? Someone I do think has had quite a good transfer window is Sunderland. But again, I just don't see the quality there. I don't see the quality. I don't think that they're going to be able to. I mean, they brought in Xhaka, and I think Xhaka is going to be someone that should springboard them a little bit towards where they want to be. But I just think on a whole, when I think about if they're going to stay up these sides, because I have looked at Sunderland and thought, do you know what? They've recruited really well. I like who they've brought in, and they're the unknown, so you kind of know what you're getting from Daniel Farker. You kind of know what you're getting from Scott Parker. They've both got relegations on their CVs. At least I think Scott Parker got relegation on his CV, unless he got sacked before he did. But they've both been promoted and, not been able to keep their respective teams up. So with Sunderland, you've got more of the unknowns, haven't you? You've got different players you've not really seen in the Prem too much. They've got a good mix of Premier League experience in players like Xhaka and Masuaku, of course, of West Ham. And then they've got some cool little Premier League gems like Adingra and then Mark Gui, I believe it's pronounced, who, again, could get off to a really good start and play well. And then you've also got the young gems that they've got like Mayinda. I just think they could stay up. But when I look at the other teams in the Premier League and how strong they are, I mean, every single team that's left now, I'm sitting there going, okay, cool. Like, where are the points going to come from for the lower league teams to where this team is going to slip up? Do you know what I mean? So, like, in 17th for me, I've got Wolves, because I just think they had a good manager bounce last season. They've got good players, but again, compared to other teams in the league, I don't see the strength. I think Strand Larsen is going to be very key to if they stay up or not. But when I look at Sunderland, Leeds, Burnley, and I try and figure out, okay, cool, so who's going to replace them? And I say, okay, let me look at Wolves. I think Wolves will comfortably get between 35 and 40 points this season. I don't see them getting lower than that. And I think that last season has shown that the gulf in class is absolutely massive between these sides. So for me, I just can't, when I look at which of the three sides are going to stay up, I don't think any of them will. But then if I say, okay, cool, Sunderland have the best chance, I still don't think it'll be that close. I still think Wolves will pretty much comfortably be safe in the table. So yeah, for me, I just don't see how any of the three teams come up, because I'm looking at it in the sense that who are they good enough to replace? And I look at every single team here, and I just don't see a team that they could replace in terms of what the point output is they're probably going to put up. Next in 16th place, I've got Brentford. Now, if you think Brentford are going to be relegated, then I don't think football's for you, to be fair. I think you look at it on the face of it and you say, okay, cool, they've lost their goal scorer, they've lost their captain, they've lost their manager. You just think, okay, cool, they're gonna free fall. But Brentford are they're very different with the way they do things. They don't have an academy. They try and hire internally. I mean, the signing of Keith Andrews is very underwhelming, but it will keep them safe. It will keep stability in that Brentford side. And even if they lose Visser, I think Dango Ouattara, by the way, what a replacement that is. I think he is mustard. I think he's a really, really good player. He barely got any minutes for Bournemouth last season, and he played really well for them. I think he got 11 goal contributions last season? Didn't play too many minutes for them. I think he's mustard. I think he'll do really well for them. Talks about Thiago as well. Don't know much about him, in all fairness, but again, I feel like they've got the stability there. Their back five hasn't changed at all. Or the back five is in their goalkeeper they've replaced with Kelleher, I think is better than Flecken. And then their back four has more or less stayed the same. They've managed to keep hold of Collins, which for me is an easy shout for captain. I just think they've got the leaders in there. They've hired internally. They've not rocked the boat. They could have gone bold and they could have hired an interesting manager. Like they could have gone for let's say a Michael Carrick or someone like that, who could actually do well for a club like Brentford. But they've been smart and they've hired internally so that they don't rock the boat too much. And I think they will have a massive drop. By the way, the drop off from last season to where they finished to me predicting them to be 16th in the table, that's quite a big drop off. I mean, they almost got a European place. So I do think they'll have a drop off. I don't think they'll be the same Brentford, but for you to just turn up and say, okay, cool, all their goals have gone, they lost the captain, they lost their manager, they're going to get relegated. I just don't see it. I don't see it at all. I think they've still got time as well, and I think they will sign more players towards the end of the window. Even if Visser goes, I think Dango Ouattara, brilliant replacement. They've kept more or less their defence. Midfield, they probably need maybe a new, but you've got players in there as well who weren't able to shine last season because of how well Mbeumo and Visser played. You've got Sharda. I think Sharda's brilliant as well. Damsgaard, Lewis Potter. These are all who's that? The Liverpool guy, Carvalho as well. These are all players that didn't feature too much for Brentford, but now I think with the manager that's come in, the stability they're going to keep, I think they'll be absolutely fine. I think it's a bit of an IQ test, I reckon. And I could look like an idiot come the start of next year and think, well, of course Brentford went down. They lost their striker, they lost their main goal threat, they lost their captain, they lost their manager. But I genuinely just think they're going to be fine. I really do. I don't think there's any panic stations in. I think it'll be a very underwhelming season. And if I'm a Brentford fan, I wanted someone a bit more interesting than Keith Andrews, but at the same time, I just think they've done the smart thing. They've hired for stability, and I just think they're going to be absolutely fine. Now, this is where things get a bit difficult for me, and probably where I'm going to change things around a little bit, because I'm there's three teams I'm considering next for the 13th to sort of 15th, and it's Everton, West Ham, and to be honest, Fulham. Now, I look at Everton and I see their recruitment, and I think they've recruited very well. But I do think with David Moyes, and this isn't the West Ham in me talking, I mean, it is a little bit, but I do think that tactically now he's just not quite where he needs to be. And I think they've signed a lot of flair players, but I just don't see Moyes as the person that's going to be able to. And the new stadium as well. I mean, that could be hit or miss. They could have an amazing. I mean, Goodison Park was such a crutch for that football club over the last few. That stadium has pretty much just dragged them through the last few years. So the new stadium, can they replicate the same atmosphere? I mean, probably, but you never know. There's always teething problems with these things, and I think they've got really good signings in. So they've got in Jack Grealish, who I think will be really good. They've got in Barry, who looks quite good as well. Dewsbury Hall, very smart signing from Everton, but I still look at that squad in a whole and the manager they've got, and I think, yes, they had the bounce last season, but is it really better than anything that Fulham and West Ham have got? So for me, and the uncertainty of the stadium, I am going to put them 15th. And then I'm going to put my team, West Ham, in 14th. A lot of people have us going to go down. And again, I don't really understand it. We're in a much better position than we are this season than we were this time last year. We've got academy players who are ready to step in. Callum Marshall, Freddie Potts, Ollie Scholes. Diouf, what a player. He will not be at West Ham next season. Brilliant player. You cannot go down with Jarrod Bowen in your side. He's going to score between 12 and 15 goals a season for you. He's going to get assists. He's going to play 90 minutes. He's going to drag your team to where they need to be. You're not going to go down with a player as consistent as Jarrod Bowen in your side. You're just not. It's just not going to happen. And then we also got Fulkrug, who is now fit, looking really good for this season. Paqueta has got no betting allegations on him at all. Hermansen, brilliant goalkeeper. And I think Potter's a good manager. He's a smart manager. He knows what he's talking about. I think the system, the 3-5-2, can work. I really like wing-back systems in the Premier League. I think that it's pretty much where we're headed. I am tempted to put them a little bit higher, but I do think with how shaky the defence is and the uncertainty, the way other sides might play, I do think we'll struggle a little bit, but I just don't see us being anywhere near that kind of relegation side of things. And again, I mean, with these three sides, I've got Fulham just in front of us. I could see all three of these sides. The bottom five that I've got here, I'm pretty locked on. I think Brentford. I think this is pretty much how the table's going to go. But these three are very interchangeable for me. If Everton finished, 13th, I would not be surprised. If West Ham finished 13th, I would not be surprised. And again, Fulham might be quite low down in my list as well, to be honest. But I look at the teams that are ahead of them, and I just think they're going to play better. I just think that they're going to be better equipped for the season at hand. And I don't think they've made too many much inspiring business. But when you've got a manager in like Marco Silva, you're always going to be comfortably around that sort of 10th to 13th spot, maybe even breaking into Europe. I really rate him as a manager. I think they'll be absolutely fine. Again, this is where it gets very difficult because up until recently, I had Bournemouth quite low down in the sort of 12th, and even Forest as well, I had quite low down as well. But I do just think that the signings that both these clubs have made have been quite good. And again, Brighton for me is a very big uncertainty because they've lost João Pedro, haven't really seen too much of their business. If Baleba goes as well, I think I'm going to go with Brighton 12th, and I don't even think that's a bad prediction, to be honest with you. I feel like that's quite a lot of people have Brighton like quite high up in the table, and I think they're a very, very tidy side, and they could easily break into that European spot. But I don't know. For me, I just think with Brighton, there's too many uncertainties there. I think they do play. I mean, I might predict the rest of this table and think differently, but I don't know. I just think there's such an unknown for me. They've lost João. I think you've got players like Ruta who are going to step up and play well. Minter, things I'm thinking about their squad, and I do think that it's got goals in it. It's got potential. But then when I look at Bournemouth and the business that they're doing at the moment, I really do just feel like they're slightly better and they're going to have a better season. But then you've got the uncertainty of like the whole back four has been ripped up. So to be honest, I'm actually going to bump Brighton to 11th and have Bournemouth in 12th, simply because the uncertainty for me of Bournemouth's defence. I think they've got a great manager. I really like their attack as well. Holding on to Semenyo, Evan Nilsson, I think is really important for them. but it might take them a while to get going. You've pretty much got like a whole back line, and you've got Petrovic in, who I think is a good keeper. I think they've bought exceedingly well, Bournemouth. I didn't think they had up until recently, but now that they've been able to, I think got Diakite, they've got quite a few new signings in, and losing Ouattara as well for 40 million. I like him as a player, but I mean that's good business, isn't it? So no, I think they'll do quite well. Forest, I think, will have a big drop off. I actually think 10th for Forest is a really good season. I really struggle to see how they would be upset with that, to be honest. I've seen a lot of Forest fans on social media basically saying, of course you're, predicting us to not finish back where we were. But, they've got European football to focus on. I think they hadn't bought well, but they've now bought, potentially bringing in 4 new players who look like really good. I think Douglas Luiz, I think the other players they've brought in look really good. They have lost Alanga, but I don't see it being panic stations for them. But I honestly think 10th with European football for Forest would be a really good season for them, considering last season they overperformed incredibly. I just think their defence is solid, and they're going to have as good a chance as anyone at doing well this season. Next, I've got Palace. Really, if Palace didn't have European football this season, I would probably push them to finish like 6th. I really rate Palace as a squad. I rate Glasner as a manager. I think as well, when he gets things wrong, he's good at rectifying it. So when he lost to Man City earlier in the league, and he said, well, whatever City have done, they better not do it again, because we're just going to fix it, basically. We know how to beat it. And then he went in that Community Shield, in the FA Cup, and he beat them. He did. So for me, I think he's a manager that learns a lot, and he's got a full season under his belt now. And I am worried that they're going to lose like Eze and maybe Gahey, which would be quite detrimental to them. But I think, Glasner's proven that he can bring in good players, and he's got good talent ID. For me, I really rate Palace and the direction they're headed in at the moment. So, yeah, for me, I'm putting them 9th, which again, with European football, I feel like would be a very good season for them. And in Conference League, I think they're going to go quite far. So they're going to be stretched quite thin. Next for me is pretty much between Villa and Spurs. And I think I'm going to go for Spurs simply because they've got the Champions League. They are still a squad that suffer from injuries. Thomas Frank is a big uncertainty for me. A lot of managers that make that step up from the middle to mid-table clubs to the so-called top 6 really do struggle to make an impact. So, and I think it's almost like, I don't know. I mean, it's between them and Villa, and I think Villa have got a very solid squad. No, do you know what? I'm gonna double down. I think that Spurs have enough to just beat Villa to that 7th spot. But it is a big uncertainty for me, Thomas Frank. But I think they'll probably sign more towards the end of the window. I love Unai Emery. I think Villa have a very solid setup, but I think they're gonna. I mean, again, it's just that thing though. Like Spurs having European football on a thin squad can have such a big impact on your season, and I just think Villa. No, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with it, but no, I do. I mean, this one's a lot easier for me. I think Newcastle have had a bit of a mare of a window, but solid setup. I think if they get in like Visser and maybe even another player, strike force wise, I think they'll be fine. Isak's a huge miss for them. So, I mean, this could look like a pretty terrible prediction come the end of the season. But no, for me, I feel like Newcastle have got enough to... And again, the European football plays a massive factor. To be fair, Newcastle do have Champions League, but I feel like they've got stronger squad depth than Spurs, which might be a crazy statement, but I feel like they've got enough squad depth over Spurs, and I feel like they'll continue to buy over the window. They've also got a squad that's pretty much not really changed much. The way they play is going to be the same. Eddie Howe continues to be a very underrated coach. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's such a hard season to predict. The bottom 5 and the top 5 for me were so easy to do. in my eyes, and especially the top four. I think top four's nailed, but everywhere in between is so difficult because all these teams have such solid setups. Like Villa on their day are such a good side, but they've had the wind knocked out of them a little bit. Palace, I think, are such a good side. Forest showed glimpses of what they could do last season and are somewhat building on that, but they just overperformed so much that I think the jump from, like, let's say, I think they finished maybe like 16, 17 or 15 the year before. The jump from that to where they finished is huge. To then continue that on with European football is just so difficult to do. So I actually feel like this is probably a safe area of where they probably should be finishing at the moment. But no, it's just difficult. It's really difficult. But this top five for me is nailed. So Manchester United 5th. They bought really well. I think the Amorim system is one that could do well in the Premier League. And I know it's very easy to go against the curve and say, well, just because they are Man United, you're putting them 5th. Absolutely, 100%. I think Sesko is a brilliant forward. It's a lot on his shoulders, but I think it's also shared with the fact that Mbeumo, Cunha and Sesko are all expected to come in and score goals and do well for United. So they've kind of got a shared responsibility. It's not like Sesko's been brought in, like Sesko's got a lot less run on his shoulders than like Gyökeres. Gyökeres has been brought in to score goals to win them that title. He's got a lot on his shoulders. Sesko's brought in to score goals, but at the same time, like, it's not to the same level as like a Gyökeres. Like Cunha will be expected to score goals, and Mbeumo will be expected to score goals. Bruno will always chip in with a few goals. So yeah, for me, I think United have got enough to perform that way. I think they were awful last season. I just cannot see that. They underachieved last season, but to the point where it was kind of like fair. Like they were just that bad that if they started the season, they generally could have gone down. But no, I think no European football, massive factor for them as well. They could just fully focus on the league, get into where they want to go. Amorim's got a very good system. He's a very strong manager. They know what they want from him. City, 4th. People are going to think that's incredibly low. I just look at City and I think, what more have you got to prove? Like, you've kind of done it all. Like most of these players in this squad, you've got Aït-Nouri coming in and he'll want a piece of the pie, won't he? You've got James Trafford, he'll want to prove himself. You've got Cherki, Marmoush, like all these players that, yes, they want to come in and prove themselves, but I feel like the bulk of the squad, like, they must be so exhausted. They must just be on like a success hangover. Like, what's going to get you out of bed in the morning and make you run those extra steps, those extra miles, when you've already done it? Like, you look at Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, they're going to be way more hungry than like a City side. But again, City are there because of the quality they have. And I also think even the manager himself, like Pep, would have left City last season, but they performed so poorly. I guess he just didn't want to finish it off in that way. But we're now at a point where, like, one of the greatest managers of all time, if not the best, sort of just needs to move on because how tired that City side seems. And I know they got Rodri back, so again, they could easily win the league. All of these sides in the top 4 for me could win the league this season. And I am including Chelsea in that. I think any of these sides could easily win the league this season. But for me, the separation now, I just think you've got sides that are more hungry and better equipped for the season. Chelsea, 3rd. You've got a really strong squad. The squad depth, I mean, their B team could probably qualify for the Champions League. Like, it's ridiculous. They've got such a strong squad. They've bought really well. João Pedro could be an absolute superstar. Cole Palmer, I think, will have a much better season than last season, and they still finish 4th. You iron out some of those kinks, and even the Club World Cup as well. I think PSG had a bit of a tough start against Spurs because of their pre-season and how late they got back. So we could see a bit of a slow start from Chelsea, but at the same time, I just think they're really solid. They've got flair players. They've got players that can do the dirty work. I think their midfield now is just there, isn't it? Like, you look at that side and you think there's not very many people I would have to replace to win the league. That there's not that many people you'd have to replace. Cole Palmer is a player you can win a league with. I think the back line more or less is a line you can win the league with. Same in the midfield. big question marks over the goalkeeper. I'm amazed they haven't gone in for Donnarumma. Maybe they will, but and again, they're a side that will continue business after the transfer window's finished. So easily, I think they're going to be third, pushing second. I think they're just going to have a very slow start to the season. They've got a good fixture run, so they're not able to capitalise on that. I just think they're going to have too much to catch up for the league. And now we get to who's going to win the league. And this is probably the hardest of the lot because everything is telling me that Liverpool will win the league because they've strengthened from last season. And to be fair, I think last season they were very average, like a very average side. They were just very consistent. Liverpool never dropped below a 7 out of 10 really last season. They were just so solid. They just played the same way every game, very solid, but just not very inspiring. And to be fair, maybe that's what gets you a title. So I'm not saying it's like, oh, they didn't deserve to win the title because they did, but I think teams are going to be a lot more on their game this season, like Arsenal. And I think with Arsenal now, they've just got their backs against the wall. And I think when you've got a team like that and a manager and a whole group of people who have got their backs against the wall the way that they do, like you just think surely they're going to pull it off. But then I'm thinking just because it is bound to or should happen doesn't mean that it will. So just because Arsenal are due a title, just because they keep winning points and strengthening their squad. But I think I read a thing from Arteta today that he said, well, we've got the most points across 3 seasons. Like you keep digging for gold and digging, and you're going to eventually like strike gold. And I think, yeah, okay, but that's not true. Like it's not entirely true. Like Arsenal could buy a new player, strengthen their squad every single season for the rest of time, and they are not guaranteed to win a Premier League title under Arteta. They're just not. And I think at this point, surely the board will say, right, well, Mikel, we've basically given you all the money in the world to build your team. You know, like Raya was his buy. You've got, I believe Gabriel was his buy. Obviously, Saliba came back on loan, but that's someone that he wanted to start for them. Timber was his buy. The midfield is his buy. Odegaard, possibly not. But the front line is more or less his buy as well. So you've been able to come in and pretty much handpick every single position. And arguably, you've got more or less a world-class player in every position. Like you'd say that 2 centre-backs are probably around world-class. The goalkeeper, very good. Full-backs, not so much. Declan Rice, world-class. Gyökeres, I mean, there's an argument there, but world-class. Saka, I think the majority would probably say world-class. I'm not entirely sure, but you just think, surely the manager's the issue. And if the manager's the issue, then he knows, right, if I was Arteta right now, I'd be in that dressing room saying, right, lads, if you care about me and what we've built over the last 5 years, you will give every single shred of everything that you have and win me a trophy this season. Win me that title this season because everyone here deserves it. Everyone here is good enough to get it. And if you don't get it, it might be us. Like this might be over for all of us. So I just think when you've got that many people with their backs against the wall, like surely they're gonna perform, like they're gonna produce something special. But then I also think Liverpool just look really solid and they've bought really well, and they've got a really solid foundation that they've built on with those 7 out of 10 performances week in, week out, to where they haven't got to do too much to win the title again. Like they haven't really, they've got to basically replace Salah's output when he's got AFCON, which I think will affect them. And yeah, for me, I think around like 85 points could probably win the title this season. Around 85 points. It's a really tough one. But I just get the feeling that, and it pains, by the way, I do not want this to happen whatsoever. This would really like pain me to see it happen. But I just think it's impossible for Arsenal not to win the league. They've done so much this season over the last few years to build. I just think, like I said, when you've got your back against the wall that much, when the desperation is there to win it as much as it is right now, like surely this is the season it happens. I just think surely it is. And again, everyone's expecting Liverpool to probably win the title again because they've strengthened. But I don't think they were that impressive last season. And they have bought a lot of players. So Arsenal have been crying out for that striker. They've got him. Will that be the deciding factor? Liverpool have basically got like almost like a whole new front line. You know, Ekatike, Verts. How's he going to work? Frimpong. How's he going to work with Salah? Kirkes has been brought in as well. They bought a lot of great players, but it's like, is there going to be a teething period? Is there going to be that bedding in period where Arsenal might, because they've been together and as a group and as such a solid group for so long, they're going to be more solid to just pick up that extra sign-in and just kick straight on. So I'm pretty sure I'm happy with that. There's a couple in there that I think are really hard to predict. And obviously you're never going to get it 100% spot on, but as much as it pains me to say, because I think this would be the worst thing in the world is if Arsenal win the league. I do just think that it's just their year this year. But I'm very happy with that. I think that there's not too many rogue shouts in there. Everton might overperform, Brighton might overperform, Palace might drop off because of the football, Newcastle might drop off, Spurs might surprise a few people, and Man United might not be as good. And obviously, City could easily win the league. Chelsea, I think, have a good chance. But yeah, that is my Premier League predictions for the 25-26 season. Thank you if you stuck around for the whole video, because I'm sure it was quite a long one. And yeah, very excited to get into this season, see what it's got for us. I haven't seen a season where this much talent has been accrued by the Premier League and all put in one place in a very, very long time. So I'm very excited to see where it's all headed, as I'm sure you guys all are. I'll catch you on the next one.